Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kevin Beales. I'm the CEO and founder of Refract, and I'm super excited to be here today to talk about the first $1 million in B2B sales, how to create that engine of growth. So that first $1 million, the $1 million has become such a magical number in SaaS. You can obviously change the currency, but it's the number that unlocks that Series A fund, maybe takes you into profitability. And I'm sure you've all considered what you need to do in order to get there, based on your average customer value, how many customers you need, based on your rate of growth, what that journey looks like. And it's really easy, right? We've got predictable revenue. We create tons of inbound leads. We have a fantastic outbound playbook. We deliver fantastic demos. Everyone signs up, gives us lots of money, and it's all really easy. Well, kind of. There's obviously a framework that we work to, and I'm going through this journey now for the third time. And the first thing I can say is that every journey is so different. There are so many variables and nuances to each journey in terms of your market, your competition, your pricing, et cetera, that makes that different. But what I'm going to go through is just part of that B2B journey. I'm going to be focusing on the decisive middle elements, if you like, of that sales cycle. I'm going to be focusing on the outreach. I'm going to be talking about outbound activity. There are people far more qualified to talk about inbound marketing than myself, but I'm going to be talking about that outreach. I'm going to be talking about that discovery process and the demos, and hopefully sharing some actionable insights that may be useful. So I'm going to start with outreach by email. We create it at Refract. Our teams will create 15 to 20 highly personalized, highly considered outbound emails each day, and we'll create just over an average of just over 2 discovery calls on the back of that. And I'm just going to share a couple of examples from the last couple of weeks to kind of show you what we do, first of all with email. So this particular example is to the Enterprise VP of Sales of HubSpot. So this guy, Rob Tyre, he sits on the board. We've taken some of his content, and we've written this outreach. Subject line, go Dan Tyre, go. That was one of the motivational lines he referenced in that article. We're adding in both high levels of personalization, trying to make it not read like a marketing email, add a bit of personality, a bit of humor into that, of why we're making that personalized connection. And we're then talking about why we think there's value in this conversation. In this instance, someone had likened Refract to the HubSpot of sales coaching, and we're referencing other similar organizations and how we've helped to solve similar problems for them. And then the appropriate ask. We're just asking for 10 minutes on Thursday and Friday of how we can make that initial interaction with him. And we're particularly lovers at Refract of using the PS. So this really allows you any kind of like personalization that you can put in there, any kind of random personalization to further distinguish from that kind of automated outreach. In this instance, on one of his blogs, he put, if you've read to the bottom of this blog, then I owe you a breakfast sandwich. But it really stands out, however someone's reading this, on whatever device they're reading it, it stands out on the page instantly. And we got this response. My colleague Stuart, if there's any recruiters in the audience, my colleague John, got this response. You've referenced one of my blog articles, told a story, small ask at the end. John is indeed an inbound sales lion. And I'll just quickly go through in a similar vein, just another example. This is to the VP of Sales of Ring Central. Again, reference their own content in the subject line to get that immediate standout. Talked about why we're connecting. In this instance, we're referencing one of their blogs, we're referencing one of their tweets. We're showing that this is highly considered, highly personalized, and that we really think that there's a connection that we can unlock. And we're again talking about what we've done, how we've solved that problem for similar organizations. And again, the appropriate ask. In this instance, we're just asking for permission to phone them at 9 o'clock on Monday and Tuesday just to make that initial connection. And again, using that kind of randomized PS. And yeah, we're fortunate enough to get emails back almost on a daily basis. We pitch to sales leaders of saying things like this, that they're going to share this example with other people on the team. So for us, I guess, summarizing, first of all, on email, it's a well-profiled prospect fit. It is highly considered who we're reaching out to in the first place. It's highly personalized. It is somewhat time-consuming. As I say, we only write 15 to 20 a day, but we'll get 2 connections on the back of that. The criteria is that it could not possibly be construed as one of those shitty mass automated campaigns that land in your inbox. It's obvious throughout that it isn't automated, and it stands out in the use of language, personality, the kind of words that we use, that we're trying to look for unusual words and phrases. Subject line needs to maximize the open, but without being misleading. The subject line is going to determine whether this gets any further or not. And as you can see, the composition, it's short, compelling value proposition, easy call to action. Not necessarily talking about the biggest logos, but talking about the stories that will most resonate with that particular individual and using the random PS. In order to kind of create personalized cadences on the back of that, because as I'm sure you're aware, it takes an average of 8 touch points in order to create an opportunity. How do you kind of do that personalization at scale? So we use tools like Boomerang and Yesware, where we can have semi-automated messages that go out, but they still maintain that original email that we've crafted so carefully, so it becomes very obvious while we're reaching out to them. But all of this is very much part of a blended approach. Cold calling is dead, or so they say. We put about 20% of our time and resource into cold calling, and we get about 40% of our results from that. That again, we take the same kind of approach. We're calling people about the content they've written. We're calling people in a very highly personalized way, not necessarily as a sales pitch in the first instance, trying to make that connection. We use voicemails as a free shot. Sometimes we'll even phone when we know we're just going to hit a voicemail and just give ourselves a free 30-second advert. It gives us the opportunity to talk about why this is such a great fit and why we've reached out to them, and that we're going to reach out by phone or by email and just start to make that connection. But all of this is being interspersed with social media interaction, so making sure that our name, and both as an individual and a company, is familiar. We're obviously liking and commenting on tweets, on Quora posts, LinkedIn, so that our name's familiar when we reach them on the phone or by email. So having created, as I say, creating an average of 2 opportunities per rep per day, and going on to the discovery call, Refract actually takes calls and demos and actually analyzes and highlights the decisive moments for coaching and insight. So we get to see lots of discovery calls, lots of demos, and I'm just going to take you through some of the things that we see and our clients see from those conversations. And the first thing, I think the biggest mistake that's made at discovery is who is qualifying who. That so often you'll see that a rep is going through their checklist, their qualification criteria, and it becomes very much like an interrogation. And of course, this is a two-way conversation. Both parties are qualifying each other, and you've got to create excitement and engagement. So first of all, consider who's qualifying who. But then you're going deep. So we need to uncover value. We need to uncover benefit in that discovery conversation. And it might be very easy to create some level of excitement, but you've got to go deep in this. So if I give you perhaps one particular example, we might find in a conversation with the sales leader that there's a massive discrepancy between their top performers and their average performers in their organization. It's definitely a problem that we can solve, and it's definitely a valuable problem to solve. But we need to start to determine how important that is and what the impact of either solving that or not solving that may be. If we can narrow that gap between average performers and top performers, how's that going to impact on their growth? How's that going to impact on their next funding round and their valuation and their exit strategy? What's this going to mean for people's careers personally, or whose career is going to be affected by the ability to increase that average rep's order value or results? And by starting to do that, not only are we starting to quantify some value, but we also start to work out who are the other stakeholders that are going to be involved in this process. An average of 6.8 people involved in a B2B sale process. who are those people, and starting to create a picture of who they are and who the ultimate decision maker may be. And the question we like best that we use at Refract is who else cares about problem, benefit, value, whatever that may be that's starting to be uncovered. So in this instance, who else cares about being able to increase or decrease the gap between average performers and top performers? And by starting to ask that question, you start to determine who else is going to be incentivized to solve this problem, who else do we need to involve, and what role are they going to play in this? But this is about moving the needle, because we're going through quite a lot here, but you've got, what, 10, 15 minutes in a discovery conversation? They've arrived a couple of minutes late, you've got a couple of minutes of pleasantries. How do you, in such a short period of time, take them from a willingness to find out about your product to having discovered all of these things? So you can see you've got a very, very small number of questions, and every question's got to really count if you're going to move the needle sufficiently to take it to the next stage during that process. I like to think of this, though, the discovery is about collecting your nuts for winter, because you might be getting your initial contact very excited, who's really bought it, he or she's really bought into the benefits or value that could be provided in a partnership. But unless you go deep, then as soon as the further stages of the sales conversation start to happen, as soon as we start to talk about the fact that there is no budget, the fact that my boss won't sign this off, the fact that our priorities have changed, there's been a reorganization in the business, that's when that conversation starts to go south if you haven't collected your nuts for winter as part of that discovery process. So moving on from the discovery then to the demo. And I think probably, again, looking at many demos that our customers deliver through and record through Refract is saying that it's not a harbour tour. You're not getting on the boat and going around for half an hour and being able to see the sites without any opportunity of getting off. In fact, I would say this is about starting with the best bits. Go straight to the dessert table. You have got a finite amount of time, and that time can easily be whittled away by some people asking questions, by people leaving early. This doesn't have to be in a logical order. It's not a training session. So you've got to go straight to the best bits, straight to that dessert table, create as much excitement and engagement as possible early on, and then perhaps talk about the process of how you get there and what the product looks like in order to achieve that. This demo needs to be highly personalized. You've gained lots of information from why you reached out to them in the first place, that initial conversation, the discovery process. Each demo needs to be highly personalized based on that. And I guess the same principle as with the discovery process. You've got to go in what are typically half an hour that's topped and tailed by the fact that, again, they've arrived late, you've got some pleasantries at the start, you've got to finish with your calls to action, what's going to happen next, what's that further process going to look like. In that half an hour or that 20 minutes top and tailed, you've got to take them from willing to find out a little bit more about your product to being super excited about whatever's going to happen next, who they need to get involved, the benefits that this is going to provide, and talking about what the next stages of that process may be. It's a long way to go in a very short period of time, and again, you can't waste any questions or waste any time there. We see comments in demos like, I don't think this is going to be useful to you, but just to show you, and you're using up that valuable time in something that you've already acknowledged isn't necessarily going to be useful or valuable to moving that needle sufficiently. So as you go through your demo, ask yourself in every question, has this moved the needle enough to justify a portion of that 20 minutes? So that's the end of my presentation. I can see that I've still got a couple of minutes left if there are any questions. But yeah, thanks very much for listening. Any questions at all?
How much time are your sales guys spending on the highly personalized emails? Can you estimate that?
Yeah, so there's definitely a balance. Part of our coaching and onboarding is it becomes very easy to spend too long in creating the perfect outreach or email. But we send 15 to 20 a day. So you go over 8 or 9 hours. You can see we probably invest an average of about 20 minutes in creating each one. And as I say, create 2 demos or 2 discovery calls on the back of that. So another question there.
How do you guys go about diagnosing opportunities for improvement?
How do you guys go about diagnosing opportunities for improvement in the sales process, and how do you guys do sales onboarding for new stuff?
That's almost like a planted question, that, because what Refract actually does is, and we obviously drink our own champagne, is take those sales conversations and enable you both in human and in insight to be able to highlight those decisive moments and then to start to share them. So it becomes very easy for us to start to create playbooks that we can share internally based on the myriad of different conversations and variables that you might have, the different things that people might ask, the different status of a prospect, and being able to give that frequent coaching and feedback to reps to be able to identify where those conversations can be improved, sharing ideas, corrective feedback. So it's very much through our own product. I'm not saying it's all about Refract, but that's kind of what we do, and so that obviously becomes a big focus for us internally. I think we've just got time for one more question, I think.
Sorry, just a quick one on the emails. You were saying to have short emails, but I guess the email looked relatively long to me. Is that, I guess, what would be short and what's long?
So, I mean, again, there is very much a balance. My personal view, the kind of length that we've shown there, I think just about works. I think it is on the edges and the fringes of being too long. I think it just about works if it's uber obvious that this is highly personalized right from the subject line onwards. I think you just then hopefully get enough enough benefit for someone to perhaps carry on reading. But I think that those examples are definitely touching on the fringes. If you are, and I know some organizations very successfully use more automated or semi-automated emails, I think those definitely need to be shorter. You can only get away with that kind of length if they are uber personalized, if you're using a bit of personality in there. That's definitely the fringes and the balance. So thanks very much. I'm going to be handing on over to Alain and Nicholas, who are going to be taking you through their 0 to 1 million journey and sharing some of the insights that they found along the way. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.